The moment I realized my own family had left me behind in a foreign country, my legs almost gave out beneath me. My name is Emily Carter, and I'm 60, 8 years old now. But the story I'm about to tell you didn't start in old age. Remember and tell, Emily Jen. It started when I was 19, standing alone in the middle of Dubai International Airport, holding a useless boarding pass and staring at a departure screen that had just changed my life forever. The word departed blinked beside our flight number. I kept telling myself it was a mistake, a glitch, a misunderstanding. Because families don't just leave one of their own behind, I ran to the counter, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My family was on that flight, I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. They just boarded. The woman behind the desk typed something, paused, then looked up at me slowly. They boarded 20 minutes ago, she said. You weren't with them. That's when my knees went weak. I laughed, because sometimes shock sounds like laughter. They wouldn't do that, I said. They wouldn't leave me. But deep down, something inside me already knew. I checked my phone. No signal. No messages. No missed calls. I reached into my bag. My passport was gone. That was the moment everything shifted, because forgetting someone is one thing. Taking their documents is something else entirely. And suddenly, memories I had pushed aside started lining up like evidence in a courtroom. The whispered conversations, the way my mother had looked at my brother before we left, long, meaningful, quiet. The way he'd insisted on holding my bag so I wouldn't lose it. I had trusted him. My brother had always been the golden child. Confident, charming, protected. I was the quiet one, the afterthought. The one who learned early that staying silent caused less trouble. When our father died years ago, everything changed. My mother leaned on my brother for everything. Decisions, money, control. I learned to stay small. So when she suggested this family trip to Dubai, I thought, maybe this is her way of fixing things. Maybe she finally wants us together. God, I was wrong. Standing there alone in that massive airport, surrounded by strangers and blinking departure boards, I finally understood something I'd refused to see my entire life. They hadn't forgotten me. They had planned this. My chest tightened as the truth crept in, slow, cold, undeniable. They didn't just leave me behind. They wanted me gone. And as I stood there, shaking, with no passport, no money, and no one to call, I had no idea that what happened next would change everything. Because the moment I thought my life was over, someone noticed me. And that moment was the beginning of something none of us could have predicted. I don't remember how long I stood there after realizing my family had left me. Time felt loose, like it wasn't moving forward anymore, just circling me. People rushed past with rolling suitcases and loud conversations, but I felt invisible, like I'd slipped out of the world and no one had noticed. That's when I felt it, someone watching me. Not staring, not judging, just noticing. I looked up and saw her. She was standing a few feet away, wearing a navy blazer with an airport badge clipped to her chest. Late 40s, maybe early 50s. Hair pulled back neatly. Calm eyes. The kind of woman who looked like she'd seen everything and wasn't easily shaken. She didn't rush over. She didn't ask questions right away. She just said, gently, "Sweetheart, are you okay?" That was it. That was all it took. Something inside me cracked. I tried to answer, but my voice came out wrong, thin, shaky, useless. My throat closed, and suddenly I was crying in front of a stranger in the middle of one of the busiest airports in the world. She didn't panic. She didn't look annoyed. She handed me a tissue and said, "Let's sit down." We sat at a small desk near the terminal. She introduced herself as Amina, part of airport operations. Her voice was calm, steady, the kind that made you feel like nothing bad could happen as long as she was there. "Where is your family?" she asked gently. I swallowed. Menin Pachin. They left. She didn't look shocked. Not even surprised. Just concerned. Left how? I told her everything. About my mother, my brother, the trip, the missing passport, the empty seat on the plane. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing more serious with every word. When I finished, she didn't say I'm sorry. She said, "Okay, we're going to take care of this." That sentence hit me harder than anything else. Because for the first time that day, someone wasn't questioning me. They believed me. She called over another staff member, then another. And soon, I was escorted into a quiet office away from the crowd. Someone brought me water. Another person asked if I needed food. They treated me like a human being, not a problem. Amina sat across from me, folding her hands. "Your passport was taken from you," she said calmly. "That's serious. And the fact that you're a minor makes this much more serious." My chest tightened. Am I in trouble? She shook her head. "No, you're protected." That word, protected, hit me harder than anything else that day. She explained they were going to review security footage, that they would contact the airline, that they would find out exactly what happened. I remember nodding, barely processing it. All I could think was, someone believes me. While she stepped out to make calls, I stared at the wall and replayed every moment in my head. The way my brother took my bag, the way my mother didn't look back, the way I told myself I was imagining things. I wasn't imagining anything. Minutes later, Amina returned. Her face was different now, serious, focused. "They have the footage," she said, "and it confirms what you told me." My heart pounded. She sat down across from me and looked me straight in the eyes. "Your brother removed your passport from your bag," she said carefully, "and your mother was present when it happened." The room went quiet. I felt something inside me break, not loudly, but deeply. It wasn't just that they'd left me. It was that they had planned it. I stared at the floor, my hands shaking. "So, they meant to," I whispered. She nodded. "Yes," and in that moment everything changed. Because this wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. This was a crime. And the people who were supposed to protect me were the ones who had done it. I didn't know it yet, but from that moment on, nothing in my life would ever be the same. I sat there in that quiet office, staring at the floor, trying to process what I'd just heard. They didn't forget me. They didn't make a mistake. They planned it. That single realization hit harder than anything else that day. I remember asking, my voice barely louder than a whisper, "So, what happens now?" Amina looked at me carefully before answering. "Now we protect you." Those words felt unreal. No one had ever said that to me before. She stepped out of the room again, and this time she didn't come back alone. 2 airport security officers entered with her. Not intimidating, professional. Calm, focused. One of them spoke gently. "We're going to review the surveillance footage from the terminal. You'll stay right here." They left me alone again, but something inside me had shifted. I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't crying. I felt numb, like my emotions had hit a wall and couldn't get through. Minutes passed, maybe more. Time felt strange. Then the door opened. Amina returned with a tablet in her hands. "Before I show you this," she said carefully, "I want you to understand something. None of this is your fault. Not..." She turned the screen toward me. I saw myself on the footage first, walking toward the restroom, backpack over my shoulder. Then I saw him, my brother, smiling, relaxed. He glanced around, then casually reached into my bag. He didn't rush. He didn't hesitate. He took my passport, folded it neatly, and slid it into his own backpack like it was nothing. My stomach dropped. Then the camera switched angles. I watched him walk toward my mother. I watched him speak to her. I watched her nod. She didn't look surprised. She didn't look confused. She looked decided. I felt something inside me crack open, not loudly, quietly, like glass under pressure. "So, she knew," I whispered. Amina nodded slowly. Yes, I felt hollow. Not angry. Not yet. Just hollow. All my life, I'd made excuses for her. She's doing her best. I had built an entire personality around understanding her, and all this time she had been choosing him. Amina continued, her voice careful. We also reviewed communications from your brother's phone. There are messages discussing your father's estate. That word hit me like a punch. Estate. She nodded. There's a trust in your name, established when you were a minor. Your father arranged it before he passed. My chest tightened. I didn't know about any trust. We know, she said gently. Your brother did. Everything clicked at once. The whispered arguments. The sudden financial pressure. The way my mother looked at me whenever money came up. This wasn't about me being difficult. This wasn't about family conflict. This was about money, and I was standing in the way. I pressed my palms together, trying to steady myself. So, they planned this, all of it. Amina met my eyes. Yes. The room felt smaller, heavier. She leaned forward. Your brother believed that if you disappeared, if you were labeled unstable or missing, control of the assets would fall to your mother. And through her, to him. The air left my lungs. They hadn't just abandoned me. They had erased me. I stared at the floor, my mind spinning. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my family, my place in the world, it all felt fake now. I trusted them, I whispered. Amina's voice softened. I know. She placed a folder on the table between us. After folder on the table between us. This contains copies of the surveillance footage, witness statements, and your travel records. We're also contacting the appropriate authorities. You're not alone anymore. I swallowed hard. What happens to them? She paused before answering. That depends on what you choose to do next. For the first time since I was a child, I realized something important. I had a choice, and whatever I chose next would change everything. I sat there staring at the folder in front of me, my name printed neatly on the tab like it had always belonged to someone else. For years, I'd lived like I didn't matter. Now suddenly, everything, my name, my future, my existence, was evidence. Amina watched me carefully. You don't have to decide anything right now, she said gently. You've been through a shock. I nodded, but my mind was already racing, because the truth was, I had decided something the moment I saw that footage. I wasn't going to disappear quietly. I wasn't going to be the forgotten daughter anymore. They had taken enough from me. A few hours later, I was escorted to a private room inside the airport, a small, clean space with a couch, bottled water, and a sense of safety I hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time since landing, I was able to breathe. That's when the reality of what could have happened finally hit me. If that staff member hadn't noticed me, if I had walked out of the terminal alone, if someone less kind had found me first, the thought made my stomach turn. Amina returned with a man in a dark suit. He introduced himself as a legal liaison for international cases involving minors. Calm voice, sharp eyes. We've reviewed everything, he said. Your situation qualifies as intentional abandonment and document theft. I flinched. He continued, You are not in trouble, but your family will be contacted. That word, consequences, echoed in my head. For so long, I'd believed consequences were something that only applied to me. Every mistake, every misunderstanding, every breath I took wrong seemed to cost me something. I never imagined they might finally apply to them. They arranged temporary accommodation for me that night. A quiet hotel room near the airport, guarded and secure. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything over and over. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I was too tired. The next morning, I was told that my mother and brother had already been contacted. They were shocked, according to the officials. They had no idea this would happen. They just thought I'd meet them later. The words sounded rehearsed. I didn't say anything. I didn't defend myself. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in my life, the truth was speaking for me. Later that day, Amina returned with an update. The authorities have reviewed the footage, she said. Your brother is being questioned. Your mother is not cooperating. I felt something strange then. Not fear, not sadness. Relief. Because I finally understood something important. This wasn't my fault. It never had been. That night, alone in the hotel room, I stood by the window and looked out over the city lights of Dubai. Cars moved like tiny stars on the roads below. Life went on, unaware of the quiet turning point happening inside one small room. I thought about the little girl I used to be, the one who tried so hard to be good, to be invisible, to make everyone happy. I whispered to her, "You did nothing wrong." And for the first time in my life, I believed it. Because somewhere deep inside, I knew the truth now. I wasn't abandoned because I was unlovable. I was abandoned because I stood in the way of someone else's greed. And that realization changed everything. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid, but because my mind wouldn't stop replaying everything. Every look my mother had ever given me, every time my brother spoke for me, every moment I had been told to be understanding, be patient, be the bigger person. I finally understood something I'd never let myself believe before. They hadn't mistaken me for weak. They had counted on it. The next morning, I was escorted to a quiet office inside the airport complex. The same calm woman, Amina, sat across from me with a thin folder in her hands. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes told me this was serious now. "They've been located," she said. My heart skipped. "My family," she nodded. "They landed last night. They were questioned upon arrival." I swallowed hard. What did they say? Amina exhaled slowly. "Your brother claimed you were that you panicked and ran off." Your mother confirmed his story. I felt something inside me crack, not shatter, not explode, just split cleanly in two. "Of course she did," Amina continued. "But their story doesn't match the evidence, the footage, the timeline, the messages." She slid a folder. Inside were stills from the airport cameras. My brother slipping my passport from my bag. My mother standing beside him, watching, saying nothing. I stared at the images until they blurred. "I loved her," I whispered. "I defended her my whole life." Amina leaned forward. "Sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who teach us the hardest lessons." Later that day, they asked if I was willing to make a statement. I hesitated, because saying it out loud would make it real, but I did it anyway. I told them everything. About my childhood, about always being second. About the way my brother had learned, early on, that he could do no wrong, about how my mother always looked away. And as I spoke, something strange happened. I stopped shaking. The fear that had lived in my chest for years started to loosen its grip. And as punit happen, and as tenate, and as tenate kamaukan. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to protect them. I was protecting myself. That evening, they told me my mother and brother would be questioned formally the next morning. The authorities had enough to open an investigation, not just for abandonment, but for attempted fraud and document theft. I nodded. I felt calm. Too calm, because deep down I already knew what was coming. The next day, I was asked if I wanted to be present when they were confronted. I hesitated. A part of me wanted to run. Another part wanted to finally look them in the eyes, not as their daughter or sister, but as someone who knew the truth. "I'll be there," I said. When they brought my mother into the room, she looked smaller than I remembered. Not powerful, not commanding, just tired. Her eyes met mine, and for a brief moment something flickered. Fear, maybe regret. My brother avoided my gaze completely. The official began asking questions, simple ones, direct ones. And with every answer they gave, the lies began to collapse. Their stories didn't match. The timelines didn't line up. And then the evidence was placed on the table. Photos, messages, records. I watched my mother's face change when she realized there was no way out. She finally looked at me, not like a parent, not even like a stranger, but like someone seeing the truth too late. "I was trying to protect us," she whispered. I met her eyes. "You were protecting yourself." The room went quiet. My brother finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't think it would go this far." That was the moment I felt something inside me settle, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one apologizing. I wasn't shrinking. I wasn't making excuses for someone else's cruelty. I was just standing there, breathing, existing, unbroken. The officials stood, signaling the end of the meeting. As they were escorted out, my mother turned back once more. She looked like she wanted to say something, anything, that might undo what she'd done, but there was nothing left to say. I watched them walk away, and I felt something strange settle over me. Not anger, not revenge, relief. For the first time in my life, the truth was louder than the lies, and I knew, deep down, that this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of everything I was supposed to become. I didn't cry when it was finally over. I thought I would. I thought I'd break down, collapse, scream, something dramatic, something loud. But all I felt was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes after a storm has burned itself out. The investigation moved quickly after that, and there were interviews, statements, paperwork, long silences in sterile rooms. I told my story again and again until it stopped hurting to say it out loud. The truth didn't shake me anymore. It steadied me. My mother was charged, not just for abandoning me, but for falsifying documents, obstruction, and attempting to manipulate legal records for financial gain. She cried when they read the charges. I didn't, because somewhere along the way my tears had run out. My brother tried to talk to me once. He said he was sorry, said he never meant for things to go this far, said he was scared, pressured, confused. I listened quietly. Then I said something I never thought I'd have the strength to say. "You didn't lose me because of a mistake. You lost me because you chose yourself every single time." I walked away before he could respond, and that was the moment I truly felt free. The legal process took time, months, but the outcome was clear. The charges stuck. My mother was sentenced. The trust she tried to steal was legally secured in my name. The people who once controlled my life had no power left to hurt me, and for the first time, I was finally alone in a good way. I stayed in Dubai. Not because I had nowhere else to go, but because for the first time, I had somewhere I wanted to be. With the help of people who believed in me, I rebuilt my life from the ground up. I studied. I worked. I learned how to stand on my own without fear. What started as survival slowly became purpose. Years passed. I built a company from the ground up, quietly, honestly, without shortcuts. I hired people who needed second chances. I paid them fairly. I treated them like humans, not tools. And one day, I realized something powerful. I wasn't surviving. Sometimes when I walk through my office and see my name on the door, I think about that girl in the airport, shaking, scared, abandoned. I wish I could reach back through time and tell her what I know now, that this pain would not break her, that it would shape her, that everything they tried to take would become the very thing that set her free. I don't hate my family anymore. I don't love them either. I've simply outgrown them. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: you don't need revenge to win. You just need to survive long enough to become something they never believed you could be.